we can start. Thank you, Daniel. So though the number is still low, but I believe others will join later on. So as I mentioned, good afternoon. My name is Grace Ingabire. I'm the CEO of RICTA. RICTA is a not-for-profit organization representing the interests of the internet community in Rwanda. I believe majority of you who are on the call, you know us already, but I know most of you know us as the Registry of Rwanda, or the .rw domain names. So we have been in operation since 2012. We are mandated by the regulator to manage mainly two services, which are the CCTL, which is the .rw domain names, the country top level domain name of Rwanda, and another service called the Internet Exchange Point. But as well, we represent the internet community in Rwanda, whereby we provide trainings, we do events related to ICT in general. So, but the purpose of this webinar or this session that we are having today will mainly focus on the other service, which is RINEX, the Rwanda Internet Exchange Point. And today we acknowledge that we have a guest who is coming from Afrinic, James Chirwa, who is with us. So before even we kick off, I take the opportunity to thank Afrinic. Afrinic is an entity in Africa that provides IP resources. We thank them a lot for availing this time and avail James to be part of us and talk to mainly the community of Rwanda about the benefits, the importance of owning your own public space. So we'll have time to go deeper into that. But thanks, James, to be with us today. So I was saying the purpose of this webinar will focus on RINEX, which is a service that has been operational since 2004. We have an MOU with the regulator, RURA, and as of today, we have more than 18 members. If you want more details about what we do, you can just have a look at our website, which is rinex.org.rw. So, before we kick off, I believe we just need to explain what is an exchange point before even we move on with the session of today. So an exchange point is just a switch. As you can see it from that diagram, it's a switch that enables whoever is connected there to keep whatever traffic, whatever local traffic, to stay local. So that is from those arrows that you are seeing, you will see content provider B, this can be a bank, ISP A, this can be MTN, ISP B, it can be BSC and others. So mainly this switch, its purpose is to keep whatever content that is meant for local users or for local citizens to stay in country. So as I mentioned earlier, we have been in operation since 2004. The switch that you are currently seeing is located in Kachiru. That's where we are hosting. And we have different members, as I mentioned, that are connected to that service. And we believe on the call, we have people that might be having content that are accessible by Rwandans, but that are not yet connected to that service. So recently we had a webinar 2 weeks ago where we discussed more about the benefit and how you can join the exchange point. And we had a good number of people who attended, and I believe they're even here for our second session, which will mainly be focusing on IP resources from Afrinic. So the next slide is more about to show you the exchange point that we have in Africa. We have more than 50 across the whole continent. I will not go into the details of Rinex because that's not the purpose of our call today. But why did we talk about this service today is because one of the requirements to join the exchange point is that you need public IP resources. And where do you get those public IP resources? You get them from an entity called Afrinic. So you don't only need public IP resources, you need as well what we call ASN. And I believe James will take more time to talk about this service. And maybe to close here, we'll have more discussion with this service, especially that we are expecting that we have more people who will be onboarded, who will understand why they need to join this service that is available for Rwandans, but which is not yet fully used as it should be. So today, the topic for the webinar is more on public IP resources. So our guest is James Chirwa. James Chirwa is an internet protocol analyst and networking professional working with Afrinic as a head of member services department. He's in charge as well of the registry operation and service delivery. Prior to Afrinic, he has been working with ISPs and CCTLD. CCTLDs are companies that provide the services of domain names. James is a technology enthusiast with an interest in networking, routing, security, leadership, process management, and information system. So today, James is here to talk more about IP number resources, which is commonly the foundation of any network infrastructure. So please feel free to ask your question. You have the chat box where you can just put your question. And again, even if I'm talking in English, you are free to use any other language. You can ask your question in Kinyarwanda. I believe we speak all Kinyarwanda. We'll respond, but again, because we have a speaker who doesn't understand Kinyarwanda, we can still translate for him. But I want this session to be more interactive. We want you guys to learn, to leave this meeting after understanding, especially that I believe you guys are the owners of your infrastructure. We want you to understand why you need to own your public space. So feel free to engage. The chat box is there. Ask question in any language. Ubundi muhawikazi. So James, without taking much of the time, I wanted you to take more time more than me. So you are welcome. Daniel, please, can you make him host so that he can start his presentation? You are welcome.
All right. Thank you, Grace, for the good introduction that you've made, and welcome everybody. As Grace introduced me, my name is James Chirwa. I'm head of member services here at Afrinic Limited. In our talk today, I would briefly take you through on an introduction to Afrinic, but also I'll define what IP number resources when it comes to Afrinic perspective is. In this one, we try to mostly demystify what public IP addresses are and what they are not, and perhaps also try to make a clarification between what public IP addresses can do compared to private IP addresses. I'll further talk about how this whole concept of IP number resource management is, and further also I'll talk about what are the requirements of becoming an IP number resource member at Afrinic. Furthermore, perhaps also I'll try to clarify a few other things that comes along with when one is an IP number resource member with Afrinic. So Afrinic is one of the 5 regional internet registries across the world. The core function is to manage the distribution and registration of internet number resources. Now, the 5 regional internet registries, we have Afrinic, which covers the region of Africa and the Indian Ocean region. So we also have Ipv6, which covers the Asia Pacific region. We have RIPE-NCC, which covers Europe and part of the Asia. And we also have ARIN, which covers the North America and the Caribbeans. And we have LACNIC, which covers Latin America and also part of the Caribbeans. Now, these 5 regional internet registries, these 5 regional internet registries, all of them are not-for-profit organization. Basically, they are member-based organization in the aspect that they have a mandate given through given by ICANN to manage these number resources. So the whole concept is to make them available in a way that they enable network operators across their region to easily access these IP number resources. However, those network operators have to first become members, and then they pay a specific membership fee, which basically is not a concept of buying the IP number addresses, but they get them for the need that they have to in order to run their network operations. Now, when we talk about the responsibility of allocating and assigning the IP number resources, what are we talking about? These IP number resources, we are referring to unique identifiers on the internet. As you may know, the internet to run, it requires certain specific numbers as well as domain names, which both are categorized as unique identifiers. The regional internet registries, our specific focus are these numbers, not domain per se. As you recall, Grace mentioned about .rw. So .rw, that's one of the domain names, and I mean domain name like the country coded top level domain, and those are managed by different other entities. But what we focus on when we speak about regional internet registries are the IP addresses, which is IPv4 and IPv6. And then we also have autonomous system numbers. Each regional internet registry operates a WHOIS database. This is practically the registry for numbers that they manage. Now, whenever we allocate or assign a number or a unique identifier to any entity, it has to be registered in that particular WHOIS database so that other operators may use that to validate whenever they want maybe to make relationship with a certain other network. If they want to connect to them, they can use that to validate. But also, it further provides such information where if there's a network problem or a network abuse, you may find relevant information that you may use to contact that particular network operating a certain prefix. So Afrinic is headquartered in Mauritius. We've been operational since 2005, and we currently have over 1,900 resource members. Now in Afrinic, as I said, our focus is on the Indian Ocean and the mainland African continent. The others, like I earlier said, we all have a similar model, but where do we get these IP addresses? So ICANN has a function called IANA. IANA stands for Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. So this function holds the entire pool of IP resources, and then where and when needed, and if available, they allocate to specific regional internet registry. Why I've put it that way is because if we take, for example, today, IPv4 addresses are running out. Now, IANA no longer have IPv4 addresses such that they can't give any at all. Everything they've already given out. However, on the other side, if you look at resources like IPv6 and autonomous system numbers, IANA still have additional resources such that any regional internet registry that has exhausted the amount that they have, they can go back and request. However, it's not the similar case for IPv4 addresses. Now, these number resources, like I said, we speak of IPv4 and IPv6, but also autonomous system number. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you may be aware of IPv4 as well as IPv6. So these are basically the unique identifiers that any connected device on the internet or network should have. Similarly, an analog to a telephone number. We don't know and understand that for a telephone number to work, it has to be unique. And also there's an authority or an operator that have to assign that particular number and make sure that there are no duplicates. It's only one, such that if somebody tries to make a phone call, they would be able to get hold of you. However, or in a similar way, IPs are also the same. So we have IPv4 and then we have IPv6. Why do we have these two different protocols? Historically, IPv4 has been the predominant protocol that has been used for TCP/IP networks. But the challenge is IPv4 is limited in number. We only have about 4 billion IPv4 addresses. But if you have seen the evolution of the internet, how nowadays things have gone to be relying on internet. And if you see the number of devices that are currently connected, 4 billion IP addresses is far much less and can't support the internet anymore. And also, there have been other mechanisms that have tried to extend the lifetime of IPv4, but with the advancement in technology, those particular solutions are not scalable or even introducing more challenges than they are expected to solve issues. Now, public IPv4 4 billion is now no longer able to sustain the demands of the internet. That's why over time, there was now a new protocol that was developed, which is IPv6 addresses, and IPv6 has a numerous number of IPs. IPv4 is only 32 bits and it can only support up to 4 billion. IPv6 is 128 bits and you can do the maths. The number is huge and it will sustain the internet for quite a long time. These two can be, it's possible to run them together in an approach known as dual stack. So it's not that a challenge when you get both IPv4 and IPv6. There are no limitations on how you can do it. There are different transition mechanisms that you can follow in order to run your networks over both IPv4 and IPv6. But with the exhaustion of IPv6, it is imperative right now to start also working on the exhaustion of IPv4, it's imperative to start working on IPv6. Now, having spoken about the two IP protocols, let's now look at what an autonomous system number is. Now, an autonomous system number defines a set of IP prefixes run or managed by a single or even multiple ISPs, but having a similar routing protocol or a similar routing policy. What does that mean? If you can see my slide here, you may have different networks here, and these are having different prefixes. But at the edge, as they go to the internet, they will require to talk to another network. Now, at that particular case, this is where you require, for those who already are aware, you require a protocol called BGP. Autonomous system will be your part of the network here, whereby you will have now your ASN connecting to another autonomous system through a P2P connection. So as Afrinic and as these autonomous systems have to also be unique, we also have a pool of these number resources that we issue to network operators. And as of today, we really encourage when we have a new requester, we encourage them, or we make sure that they understand the need for autonomous system number, because it is quite better to learn a network if you have your own prefixes from Afrinic. If Afrinic have allocated you the prefixes to use, you would rather manage your network as an autonomous system rather than work as a part of a bigger ISP or a service provider. So, as I have spoken about the number resources, this is just a pool of what Afrinic has out of the other, the entire pool that is available. So we have different IPv4 blocks, which are in /8, and we also have another pool of about a /7. Total, this gives us about 121 million IP addresses for the region. Now you can also think of 121 million IP addresses that cannot sustain the digital growth that we aspire for in this region. IPv6, we have those two blocks, and they are currently supporting, and we have quite a huge chunk that is available. I think we have certainly used just about 3% of what we have, and we are encouraging the adoption of IPv6 as well across the region. We also have those pools of IP autonomous system numbers that we give out to our members. So how do we manage these number resources? So at Afrinic, we have, as I earlier said, a WHOIS database, which is a service that we offer. This is just a registry for the IP number resources. In addition, we also offer what we call the MyAfrinic portal. This MyAfrinic portal is there to provide our members with a front-end interface that makes it easy to manage their IP number resources as well as their membership accounts. So as part of the same IP number resources, as a non-profit making organization, Afrinic is also a member-based organization. What does that mean? Afrinic has a community of members. This is just a group of people with interest who want to develop or participate in the development of IP number resource management policies. And these policies are discussed at each RIR has their own policy development processes. So Afrinic has its own community that discusses and decides which policies are best for the region. Once these policies are adopted, the registry as a secretariat takes them up and now implements them in the day-to-day operations as we manage the number resources in terms of allocations and assignments. There is a process that goes through the policy development process where discussions are done. They are actually led by co-chairs who we call them as policy development co-chairs. So they lead these discussions, and then once a decision is reached, it is sent to the board of directors, and the board of directors, once certify them, Afrinic, the registry, picks them up and implement them in the day-to-day operations. So there are things that have to be considered when Afrinic is doing the IP number resource management activities. Now, these policies at Afrinic are managed or are consolidated under what we call the policy manual. This policy manual is available online, and it has all the effective the policies that are in effect. So it is just a step-by-step guide that says this is allowed and this is not, and maybe it also determines what one is supposed to what preconditions are supposed to be met before one can be either able to become a member or even be able to get resources at any point in time. For example, one of the IP policy that is in effect as of today is the IPv4 soft landing phase 2. And this is the policy that came in mostly due to exhaustion of IPv4. Now, for posterity or to ensure that IPv4 is still available in the region and can support startups and new organizations that needs to get online, that have content to put online publicly. It was deemed that it's necessary to reduce the amount of IPv4 that Afrinic can give to any entity at one go to a maximum of /24 and the minimum of /20, I mean a maximum of /22 and the minimum of /24. So /22 is basically 1024 IPv4 addresses. Minimum, we can only give 256 IP addresses. So similarly, these policies do not only cut across IPv4, they cut across all the number resources that we manage. We have policies that define how we manage and allocate and assign IPv6 addresses. For example, with the growth of the internet, it was deemed necessary that we should be able to allow those who got IPv6 earlier back in the days, maybe because they were not very certain of their needs, and today they've realized that maybe I need more IPv6. They can come and change to say, what I have right now, what I got first is not enough, and I have reviewed my needs and I need more. So without checking whether they are using it or not, that particular policy empowers us to give them either additional or we extend what they already have so that it remains aggregatable. Why I'll speak of aggregation, you've seen one of my next slides where we talk of some of our principles that we follow when we are doing IP resource management. Similarly, the policies also applies to autonomous system numbers. When somebody needs an autonomous system number, you need to practically demonstrate that you would be able to define a proper routing policy different from your upstream service, or you'd be able to demonstrate a business need that shows that you have a technical need for the IP for the autonomous system number. Now, in our IP resource management, we have objectives or principles that we also follow. Like I said, with the exhaustion, we try to make sure that we are still able to support new startups and be able to make them deploy their services properly and be accessible globally. So we have a principle objective of conservation just for the efficient use of resources. Now, in this particular aspect, we give based on a member's needs. You have to demonstrate these needs to say, my plans to use the IP resources are like this, and then we will give you enough to fit your needs. We will not give you excessively more because we do not want people to just stockpile and keep resources idle while others may be in need of those same resources. Now, the other thing is aggregation. Like I said in the previous slide, we try to make sure that we issue resources as much as possible, that once we give you once and you come again, you would be able to aggregate them and announce them as a single prefix. This is just in an approach to support or to ensure that the global routing table is maintained and does not grow exponentially. Otherwise, it becomes a burden to network routers across the globe that are doing BGP and they are having a full routing table. So in that interest, to try and minimize this growth, we try to issue as much as possible prefixes that can be aggregatable. The other principle is now registration, which is the crucial aspect. As a registry, we need to ensure that whatever we give out is as unique as it can be. We would not want to give an overlap or an overlapping prefix to two different entities, or even the same prefix to two different entities. What we make sure is we have to abide by the requirement of the IPv4 or IPv6 or ASN as being the unique identifiers. So in our management, we ensure that uniqueness is maintained. And also this particular registration, like I said earlier on, you would be able to find the correct information in our database when you are either troubleshooting or you have network abuse issues. You get to our WHOIS database, you find the correct information that you may have to use. Now, I've spoken about the IP number resources. Now, let me move on to speaking about what you would need to get this particular IP number resources. So basically, to access IP number resources from Afrinic, you would require to become a member. Now, at Afrinic, we have three types of memberships. We have the resource member, and these are the members that come and request for any of the number resources that we have. We also have what we call an associate member. An associate member could be a person, could be an NGO, could be a government institution. It's just anybody or an institution with interest to participate and take part in the development of IP number resource management policies, as well as discussions. These associate members are not the same as the community in the aspect that if you're an associate member, you sign an agreement with Afrinic and you are also allowed to attend the annual general meeting, even though you do not participate, you are just an observer. However, out of interest, you have the ability to contribute in specific ways on how Afrinic should be managed. The third one is the registered members, and these members are essentially the board members. Board members at Afrinic are elected. We have board members for each region across the continent, and also we have 2 seats that are non-regional. So these go through elections accordingly, and once elected, one becomes a board member. Now, my focus moving on would be on the resource membership. Now, resource membership, we have 2 types of members. I know predominantly people have felt that public IP addresses, getting public IP addresses from Afrinic is for only service providers, but that is not the reality. We support both service providers and end site. We'll look maybe when we discuss further ahead why it's becoming even more necessary for enterprise organization or enterprise entities to actually get their own public space. However, so at Afrinic, we do support both kind of membership. LIRs stands for Local Internet Registries. This is basically refers to service providers. These are operators who provide internet and internet-related services. So if you look at ISPs, mobile operators, cloud service providers, hosting providers, this falls into the category of local internet registries. And then we have the end sites, and these are now the ones behind the ISPs. These are any entity that wants to run their network or operate their network on a public IP space. This could be a school, an academic institution, it could be a bank, it could be a financial institution, it could be a government department, any entity that have needs or that have evolved their network and requires or have public or services that needs to be consumed publicly, and they would need public IP addresses. So these are the membership that we the membership types that we support, and there are different eligibility criteria for these memberships. As you may know, their needs would be different. So there are specific needs that meet both, and some specific needs that are unique per category or per type. Now, as you can see, local internet registries, normally they have one aspect that is important to note is there is that proof, or you need to demonstrate that you have a need for these IP number resources. So you have to demonstrate that you have a particular infrastructure to learn these resources. You may also demonstrate that you have a customer base if you are not a new operator. The most important part is that if you are already also maybe running on a set of public IP addresses from your upstream provider and you plan to renumber, you can also give us that renumbering plan. Furthermore, you will see on the next slide the other set of requirements, but on the end user side, end user now, according to the policy, they need to show that they are currently either using at least /25 of IPs from an ISP, or at least 50% of the total size requested is required immediately, where immediately implies a period of 0 to 3 months. So if you meet one of those conditions, you would be able to meet the needs that we look for. On both ends, the maximum that we can give is a /22 of IPv4, and the minimum is a /24. So another requirement for becoming a member now for both local internet registries and end users is, first of all, you need to be a legal entity. So you have to be a legal entity and incorporated within the Afrinic operating region, which is the continent and the Indian Ocean side. But also you need to demonstrate that your infrastructure is based in the region. So this is one of the other requirements that you need to demonstrate. If you cannot demonstrate that you are a legal entity, then you would not be able to get into a contract or an agreement with Afrinic. Additionally, you also need, as part of demonstrating that you are a legal entity, you need to provide Afrinic with a copy of your certificate of incorporation, and also physical address and contact details. Furthermore, Afrinic would also look at your IP addressing plan so that you can demonstrate that you really have a technical need to learn a network. It's not complex, but we believe people understand their own network and they frame their IP addressing plan accordingly. Where need be, we also assist people in interpreting their needs onto a detailed IP addressing plan. For some requirements, like for local internet registries, which are service providers in most countries where they need a regulator's license, that's one of the things that we also look at. For end users, we normally look at agreement with upstream providers, because we need to also ensure that they have the capacity to either announce those IP addresses either through the upstream or by doing BGP with an upstream service provider. Where necessary, we also ask for evidence of infrastructure presence, just that we can verify that they are really an operator in the region. So most of this comes in from the requirements of the policies that they have been framed. Now, upon meeting all the requirements and just become a member, any potential member has to sign the agreement with Afrinic. This is the registration service agreement. As I have mentioned before about registration, so getting number resources, that's one of the service, and you need to sign an agreement in that particular term. And there are sections that also emphasize that it is important that a member knows that they have demonstrated need from the beginning, and those particular resources have to be used as justified. And that is now the resources have to be used within the ambit of need. However, where necessary and where there is a need, the member also have to inform Afrinic if they are changing their usage, which Afrinic will have to review and accept. One other thing that is also important is, like, as you have seen in the first statement, the resources are issued in the on the ambit of need. As such, when the need is no longer there, the right to ownership of the resource ends as well. Now, as you can see, one of the section in the registration agreement clearly states that these number resources are not owned by a member, but they are given for the need that you have. So at any time, if you no longer need them, it is advisable to return the number resources to Afrinic and terminate your agreement. However, whenever Afrinic notices any abuse of such sections of the agreement, the member is notified and guided to take appropriate actions. So, membership, apart from getting the number resources and also signing the agreement, there is also the aspect of fees. Now, at Afrinic, as non-profit making organization or not-for-profit making organization, and as regional internet registry, we have a billing model which does not really count the number of IP addresses that we give, but is categorized into groups based on specific ranges of IP addresses that that a member holds. So as you can see from the table here, you see varying membership category. These are for regional internet registries, and the size of the amount that they hold, and then there is the amount of fees that they have to pay. Now, if you can see here, you see that there are two different columns showing the fees. Just to clarify on this, allocation fee, this is a one-off fee that you pay, first of all, at the beginning of your membership when you are becoming a member. So there is that allocation fee, but also an annual membership fee. However, an annual membership fee is a recurring fee, not a one-off. Allocation fees are one-off. Annual membership fees are recurring fees. So for you to maintain your membership with Afrinic, the critical aspect is you need to make sure that you are paying your annual membership fee. If you do not pay annual membership fees, Afrinic makes all the necessary steps to remind the necessary members, the concerned members, to make sure that they pay. But on the aspect whereby a member is unable to pay for some reason, maybe they've gone out of business, they've stopped operating, or they are no longer reachable, then these particular resources are taken back. So paying membership fee is one of the conditions guaranteeing continued membership with Afrinic and ownership of the resources. So as you can see here, when you've become a member and you want to get additional resources, you still also be charged an additional, the allocation fee at each instance. So only that instance, when you are getting an additional resource, you would also be charged. Otherwise, if you go through a year without any additional resources from Afrinic, your membership fee would remain the only fees that you have to pay each year. Now, as you can see, we have different categories, and then you'd see that some of them are bred. Why they are bred? These are, at the moment, as you recall my previous slides, in one of them where I mentioned about the maximum number of IPs that we can give. As at today, for any resource that we can issue, it's only up to extra small category, which is a /22, and those are the applicable fees for that particular category. In some instances, due to evolution of things, we also have a transfer policy, which allows resources to transfer from one entity to another due to certain business requirements. In those particular cases, if the resources are more than the /22, then the particular interested party who is receiving those resources most of the time have to pay the applicable fees. That's why you still see them in this particular chart and the other charts to come. So those are fees for the local internet registries, and then these are fees for the end site operators. Now, as you can see, the same thing up to /22, extra small, different assignment fees and different annual membership fee. As you can see here, the difference in the annual membership fee between the end site and the local internet registries, you see that here the fees are slightly higher, rather compared to the end site here for the annual membership fee. This is just to encourage end site operators, those who are not internet service or internet related service providers, but those who are actually corporate entities in other aspects or academic institution or governments to also become members and be able to manage their networks in a better way. So having spoken about IPv4 and IPv6, IPv4 and its related costs, let's simply also see what it would entail becoming an IPv6 member. One thing to mention is there is also a possibility of becoming an IPv6 only member. So you can come and get only IPv6 from Afrinic if you don't want to run your IP network on IPv4. So there are requirements like the connectivity within 12 months you need to demonstrate, and all these are coming from the policies that I've spoken about earlier on. So you should be able to demonstrate that you'd be able to connect within 12 months and essentially have those prefixes seen in BGP tables within that period. Now, Afrinic by standard, if you are a local internet registry, you are given a /32, but that is not the limit. If you wish, and if you can demonstrate your needs with a properly defined IPv6 addressing plan, you can get a prefix fitting your requirements. For end sites, we also they can also become a member, or else they can get it together with the IPv4. So for IPv6 EU, they need to actually hold or be eligible for IPv4 provider independent, which is for the EU, the end users, but also they should demonstrate that they would be able to announce those IPs in BGP within 12 months. For end users, meanwhile, we issue minimum of a /48, but you can get more if you demonstrate your needs, and if your needs are really more than worth a /48. So those are the eligibilities for IPv6, both for local internet registries and EUs. So if you are becoming an IPv6 only member, you also have a set of fees that are applicable. As you can see from this table, those are the applicable fees. And you would see what you have to pay if you are a small category and a large category. And then if you are an end site, But then further to this, there are also applicable discounts such that the first 3 years, you get 100% discount for the annual fees, and then the consecutive year you'd get 75, and for the next 3 years until the fees keeps going down by 25%. So that's it for the for IPv6 and autonomous system numbers. Some also can be able to become an autonomous system number only member based on their routing policy. Their requirements, you just need to demonstrate that you have an agreement or you will be peering or connecting with another AS number. And in that particular case, provide also your routing policy, how you are going to peer with that or to connect with that particular other network. So autonomous system number only customers or members, those are the applicable fees. So you have a setup fee of $400, and then you also have the annual membership fee of $50. So each year you have to pay $50 to sustain your membership and resource ownership. Now, we've spoken about IP addresses through and through, but why should we worry or why should we mind about these public IP addresses when you can operate your network behind NAT and private IP addresses? So historically, internet was supposed or is meant to be an end-to-end model in its initial design, but due to the growth that internet saw in the early 90s, there were mechanisms to extend the life of IPv4 in such a way that certain mechanisms were introduced, such as CIDR and network address translations, private IP addresses behind public IP addresses or behind a number of public IP addresses. However, these mechanisms, though they have been able to sustain, but they do not prove successful in some other implementations, but also in certain trends that are coming in today's businesses. Now, as we can look at today, there has been a massive evolution in technologies, and internet is not the same as it has been maybe 20 years ago. For example, if we look in our region, one of the trends that is actually we are constantly seeing is that we are shifting from being content consumers to content creators. Now, this is where it becomes necessary because this content has to be put on a public set of IP addresses to be accessible publicly. If you are a content creator, you would not put your services on a private network and expect people to see it from outside. And now, even depending on what we are trying to do in nowadays is we are encouraging people to develop content that is applicable to the region compared to what we have in the past really done is we have consumed content from across the world, not from our own region. Now, this shift in here is one of the drives that is making it necessary to make use of public IP addresses rather than private IP addresses. There is also a very booming industry of financial technology solutions. These are solutions that are supposed to be consumed publicly, and hence you also need public IP addresses to be able to provide these services, but also not just provide the services, but provide them in a way whereby there is scalability in your approach. So if you look at the growth in financial technology solutions, you will realize that all this growth demands the need for IP resources. There are certain reasons and considerations that maybe other operators do need and they would specifically maybe want to connect to another business, and they are strict on need for business-to-business connection with public IP addresses, because a network that is behind the private IP addresses may pose risks to the other business, as they are not so sure of what other elements are running behind that particular network. So in B2B solutions as well, you realize that it is becoming not only a need, but a must also to make use of public IP addresses. In the past, governments never used to have public content apart from perhaps running a website. But if you look at today, we have transitioned, things are transitioning. We are getting e-government solutions. Governments are running different portals online and different solutions as well as services that are for the public to consume. These kind of solutions would not need private IP addresses, but they would need a proper publicly reachable IP, a set of IP addresses. Now, these all another trending things are data centers and collocation. Nowadays, we are having data centers that are only providing power and space, and they want customers to go and collocate. And in that particular need, you go there, you would require a set of your own public IP addresses to be able to run your infrastructure or connect to another service provider out of that data center. So this evolution or these evolving technologies are the ones that would be part of the driving force on why we need to move or make use of public IP addresses. But also on the other part, we need to consider how our internet connections have been predominantly slow. Now, even if you deploy these particular solutions on these particular slow connections, it will not be a best user experience for your intended customers. Now, another drive behind getting public IP addresses is now to overcome these slow or unreliable networks or network connections. Why? Because once you get a public IP address, you would be able to further attain certain other types of connections rather than just doing your direct internet connection from an ISP. You would be able to do peering at an IXP, but also be able to get transit services, which may grant you higher capacities. Now, peering, as you may recall from Grace's earlier presentation about IXP, Rwanda IXP, this is exactly the essence, because you are looking at shortening the path from one, either from one network to another or from a service provider to a consumer. You are eliminating multiple hops by doing a direct peer at an IXP. And these peering points will require you to use public IP addresses. Peering points, as we speak today, have become crucial for development of local content as well as improvement of local internet access, because they are eliminating hops that we have to go through when we are using our normal or the DIA that we've used in the past. And also furthermore, I think in the past it has been a feeling that perhaps peering is only for service providers, ISPs and mobile operators, but the trend has changed completely, such that even any content provider, be it a financial technology institution or even a banking institution, or even an academic institution can as well appear at an ISP as long as they have the content or they have a specific target that they want to get content from at a better performance. So overcoming slow connections and unreliable network connections is one of the things that would also drive the need for public IP addresses, because this enables you to do peering. But also with private IP addresses, it is not easy to multi-home over multiple ISPs. It becomes harder to do a proper BGP multi-homing with multiple ISPs. It's possible over a certain arrangement, maybe with 2, but to scale it to more than 2 and be able to have a reliable network connection, it is practically impossible. But then with BGP, that means behind that you are running your set of public IP addresses, you would be able to scale based on your needs and grow it accordingly. So those are some of the drivers that would demand that you get a set of public IP addresses. We also look at network scalability, how you can quickly scale your network infrastructure. As we have spoken about evolving technologies, some technologies are growing faster that you need to scale them at a faster rate. Now, if you get your own pool of resources, at least as you can recall, maybe if one of the requirements at Afrinic is to show that you'll be able to use as an insight, you'd be able to use 50% of what you're asking for within 3 months. But then after a year, if your network is growing at a faster scale, you would be able to quickly deploy your solutions because you already have that remaining part of the IP resources compared to getting them from your service provider, which may be, which most likely they may be having a limitation. Why would they be having limitation? As you can recall, I already spoke about the IP address exhaustion, IPv4 address exhaustion. Now, this is what has actually come into play at the moment. Network operators, ISPs, no longer, or rather Afrinic, with the limitation of a /22 maximum, do not satisfy their needs. So as at today, that particular /22 is less than what they need. So what they are doing is probably conserving what they have to maintain the growth of their network infrastructure. And now for an end entity or a new provider, service provider, if you want a certain number of IP addresses like a /24 or up to a /22, you can easily come and get your own pool of IP addresses from Afrinic. So just to demonstrate how over the period Afrinic has depleted its pool of IP number resources, you would see this particular graph where we've over 2017 until now, where we have about 1,800,000 available space that can be issued to members. That is, we are quickly running out. Of course, we still have another 4,000 available, not available, but reserved, but part of it can be made available when necessary. However, right now, the exhaustion is getting towards now depletion, where we may soon run out completely. Afrinic, as we speak, is the only the only regional internet registry with available pool of IP addresses. The other registries have completely depleted their pool, and lucky for us, we came in late to the scene, but we still have some to support our emerging digital economy. So IPv6, we are also seeing a good adoption across the continent. So far, it hasn't really gone too far, but it's still encouraging. We do have distribution of those IP addresses across the top countries, but it's also all over the continent where we have issued out IPv6. And also, we have observed now about 50% of the members have IPv6, and we have about 33% of those that have been able to announce IPv6 address. So at Afrinic, we do run IPv6 deployment help desk, where we assist those who want to deploy IPv6 from the start, where we take you through the IPv6 address planning based on your network setup, on to now the approach into how you can go ahead and deploy, first of all, announce the prefix to the internet, and also probably start deploying services over IPv6. So we do have a ready support for that. And we also hold different deployathons where you can register and you'll be handheld in a session, which are normally 4 days, in order to prepare your network for IPv6 deployment. So after getting your IPv4 or IP addresses from Afrinic, there are certain considerations to put in place. I know historically people have believed or have a belief to say NAT provides security and public IP address exposes you to the internet or to the dangers of the internet. However, different school of thoughts also thinks otherwise. However, whenever you have public IP address, it is important to bring in necessary considerations into how your network would evolve in terms of security. So it is not, there is no one size fits all, but it all depends on the network requirements and also the needs of your network and why you need to get the particular public IP addresses into your network. Whether you choose to deploy your public IP addresses only in a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, or you would want to scale them even up to your enterprise solutions, or as well as even into your end users, it all cuts across what and how you need to implement your network. So network security considerations was one of the important things that when you decide to get a pool of IP addresses, it's important to put into consideration before you roll out. And besides, the migration also, maybe the other thing is also at Afrinic, we also do not just run the registry. We do more. We do provide additional services. We do provide routing security mechanism or services that helps you in staying safe or making sure that your traffic is protected when it is traversing the global internet. Now with RPKI, you are able to securely determine which autonomous systems should be accepted to announce your prefixes. And similarly with Internet Routing Registry, it also provides a similar mechanism, but further also helps people to easily automate network filters or IP filters when they are implementing their configurations. So instead of hassling with configurations of the IP prefix filters, you can generate them using online tools based on the information that is captured in the Internet Routing Registry. The information in the Internet Registry is basically the routing policies that we've been speaking about earlier on that are defined by the autonomous system number. So those are some of the things. And in addition, also we also provide a reverse DNS delegation service as part of our additional services, such that for those people running services that needs to send out emails or they are running email servers, you are able to define your reverse domain, and then we point them to where you are holding your DNS zones for these particular prefixes. And from there, anybody who is doing a check on email reverse delegation, they would be able, or email reverse DNS, they would be able to find the right information and accept your information or emails. So another thing is, it is also important to note that our WHO is also contains information that can be used whenever there is an information abuse, or there is a network abuse and you want to send a complaint to other people. you would be able to find such information, and every network operator is also encouraged to provide their particular set of information such that there is global coordination in terms of managing or controlling threats as well as abuses that happens online. In addition, also, we at Afrinic also have a support service system that we are available to support the needs of our members. So having spoken about all that, what is required for one to become an additional, I mean, what does one need to do if they have all what it takes? As I have explained, the eligibility criteria, all you need to do is go to this particular page, and then you will, there are a few documentation that you may wish to read. They provide more guidance, but also you can see, but then after that you need to register and you log in and you can initiate your request. Ensure that you provide those documentation that are required for the particular type of membership, and then upon that your membership would be concluded and you can proceed, sign the agreement and make your payment for the membership fee and assignment or allocation fees. For any other assistance, if you still need to get in touch with us to find out more regarding the membership part, then you can contact us at new-member@afrinic.net. If you are already a resource member, you need more assistance, you can contact us at hostmaster@afrinic.net. But also, if you're a member and you want assistance for your account information management, you can contact us at service-support@afrinic.net. Thank you all for your attention, and this brings me to the end of my presentation. And your questions are welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you so much, James, for a very rich presentation with so many details. So I think I got an opportunity to go back and learn some of the things that I had forgotten. So thank you. So the next session is more to get questions from the people who have attended. Feel free to just unmute yourself or to raise your hand, because I have not seen any question from the chat box. You can just raise your hand and then we'll unmute you and then you can ask your question. Okay, maybe before we get questions from the audience, I have one question to you, James. During your presentation, you mentioned about that IPv4 addresses are running out. And I believe it's not at the African continent level. I think it's worldwide. So my question is, what is the plan that Afrinic is having for this if IPv4 are running out? So does it mean, if I'm a new member and I need new IPs, is it something that, I don't know how I can ask it. You are saying that they are running out, but the resources that you are having as of now will take on maybe for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years. So we'd like more to hear. And what's the plan now? If the IP resources are running out, is it that people now need to move to IPv6? Is there any plan that is in place to help those that will not maybe get that opportunity of getting those IPv4? So I would like to hear more about this.
Thank you, Grace. So yes, as I said, we are indeed running out of IPv4. As you can see, we have in total about 121 million IPv4 addresses. However, as we speak today, we only have about 1,800,000 which are available, and about 4 million which are in quarantine pool. Together probably giving us about 6 million IP addresses that are remaining. And to be honest, I would not consider them to be so much, because if we consider the consumption, if at all, first of all, our drive to bring in more members on board, which is our ambition, because we want people to run networks better across the region. It means that this pool, that the remaining pool, would practically run out very quickly. Remember, we are talking about a scope of the whole continent and the Indian Ocean region. Now, with that 6 million, we are essentially talking of only probably about 2 to 3,000 new members getting a /22. And these are numbers that probably could be reached at within even a few years to come. That is one element, and if we count 2 to 3 years from now, I don't think it's a lot of time that we have left. That's one aspect. The second aspect is, like I said, that we do have policies in place. Now, these policies is something that we do not define ourselves, but they are defined by a community. So you can never say, if tomorrow somebody comes with a policy that determines that maybe we give out more than we are doing now at one go. So that could be some trigger also that may make it may make the exhaustion faster. Now, how are we preparing about such? Because this is a certainty, the exhaustion will happen, I believe, sooner than later. What are we doing about it at Afrinic? This is why we have enhanced our approach in terms of Ipv6 adoption. As you may be aware, and some may be aware, predominantly Afrinic has done a lot of trainings in Ipv6, but now the approach has changed in such a way that we are not doing much trainings. Our trainings have moved now to e-learning platform. We have our e-learning platform, learn.afrinic.net. There you find different training modules for Ipv6 and in different languages, and even also for IP number management. There is a crash course that anybody can go and familiarize with. And to make it a statement also that the platform access is free, but we also have introduced certification for Ipv6. The exam is paid up for, but you can get the content and prepare for free. Now we have increased this drive for Ipv6 such that we are also conducting webinars throughout the year on Ipv6 and other technologies, but also we are doing deployathons where any member with Ipv6 can apply and they will join that particular session. In that session, we are actually hand-holding members to be able to confidently deploy Ipv6. Furthermore, also, is if you are working on your Ipv6 implementation and you need you are getting stuck or you need assistance, we also have a ready available help desk that is providing support for Ipv6. So you send us an email to DO, stands for Deployathon Operationalization, do@afrinic.net. You would be assisted and be able to get. Now, these are some deliberate approaches that we have put in place to ensure that people in the region, our members, are able to confidently understand and grasp Ipv6 implementation approaches with confidence. Because I think one thing maybe that could be said is also that IPv4 looks lighter to the eye compared to IPv6, and perhaps it becomes scary to people, but that is just now a perception. In reality, when people get to familiarize themselves with IPv6, then the confidence levels rise as well. So we are doing so much, or we are putting more focus on IPv6 as of now, to ensure that not only people are being trained on it, but more now on that engagement in such a way that people have confidence in deploying IPv6.
Okay, I think I got my answer there. Thank you, James. I'm seeing your hand. Let me just unmute you. Okay, just unmute.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Grace and James, particularly Grace, for holding this webinar in Rwanda. My question to James is it's a hypothetical scenario I'm giving here. I'm a webmaster from a government institution. Hypothetically, let's say as an institution, we have implemented the IP version 6 plan, and we have also followed all the criteria that you have said in your presentation. And we are kind of stuck in the annual payment fees. Is there a way that you can extend, give an extension period for the annual payments? Because let's say we have done the allocation payment, and now we are doing the annual payments, and we are kind of stuck in the annual payment deadlines that you may set for us. Is there a way you can extend, be friendly for us as a government institution? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question.
James, maybe
Yes.
before you respond to that, Daniel, which institution are you representing?
I am representing WASAC.
WASAC.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, for the question. And yes, I have an answer to your question. So what Afrinic has in its billing policy, and this is also publicly available on our website, is that if a member knows that there would be, maybe they would have certain challenges before they receive the invoice, they can contact Afrinic to request that either they are given invoices quarterly or like pay a semester in the year. So once you inform us in advance before the invoicing period, Afrinic could take your request into consideration based on that policy that is on our website, and you would be able to be invoiced on a quarterly basis or on a semester basis. So that is something that is considered, but also maybe something that I might not have mentioned in our in my presentation is that we also provide discounts to specific categories, and these are specifically academic institutions that can demonstrate that they are not for profit making or they are public institutions. In that particular aspect, where such can be demonstrated, we provide 50% discount on the annual fees. But also, we also have another category of what we call critical infrastructure providers, such as IXPs. IXPs, we also give them 100% discount now on all the fees, whether it's allocation fee, assignment fees, or annual membership fees. So these are some of the also deliberate approaches that we have in place to ensure that some other entities also are able to easily get on board. I think, as you might have heard earlier on in Grace's presentation, she also mentioned that RENEX is a not-for-profit making institution, and in that particular case, I think it's a case with most providers across the region where they run these exchange points in a model where it's not for profit making, and in such a way we also make it possible for them to be able to run them without paying by benefiting on that discount from us. I believe I answered your question well.
Daniel?
Okay. All right, you're welcome, Daniel.
Okay, great. Any other question? Richter team, any question from you, Daniel and Richard?
No question, thanks.
Okay, so we had requested earlier for people just to write their names, the institution they are representing. At least we have heard from Vitumbiko Nyirenda. So please, others, just write in the chat box your names and the institution that you are representing. Any other question, Mugunga, please?
No questions so far.
Everything is clear to you guys? Okay, so we are 8 minutes past the time that was allocated. Okay, I thought it was a question. It's just people were writing their details. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank, first of all, our guest, James. James, thanks a lot for taking more than 1 hour just to give a brief introduction and for people to understand IP public resources, why they need them. So it was really rich. Thank you for this. I thank as well people who have managed to attend and stay with us for more than 1 hour and a half. I know it's not easy these days because of a lot of webinars, a lot of sessions happening online at the same time. So thank you, guys. Our next section will be mainly focusing on routing. As I mentioned earlier on, is that we are trying to educate the community to understand first, before they join RINEX, there are requirements that they need to have. So today we discussed mainly on IP resources. The next webinar will be talking more about the BGP. BGP, what is BGP? We'll not go into too much detail, but at least people need to understand that the protocol that we'll be using for peering communication. So thank you, everyone. In 2 weeks' time, I think you'll see an invitation by next week, and you'll see it on our social media, the next session that will happen towards the end of this month. So thank you so much and enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace, for the invitation as well. And thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you so much, James. And thanks for the rest. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.